Kenneth Jayasuriya. I've been working for Porsche Center Calgary for 5 years now. I've been working on classic cars, with, I guess, some Porsches and European cars for about 10 to 15 years. I'd say working on cars since I was a young guy, in about grade 8 or 9. First car was a Volkswagen Rabbit, and it was yeah, a long time ago. I guess I've dated myself just there. What first attracted me to the Porsche brand is just it being the pinnacle of kind of European technology and engineering. The design and aesthetics, just all those things combined together is a brand that I've always liked and wanted to be a part of. And I'm here today, and I'm kind of working on the generation of vehicles that I love, and that's the classics. I guess they say that 70% of our Porsche branded cars are still on the road to this day, and that shows for actually maintaining your vehicle. Maintaining your vehicle, you'll make sure that kind of if there's any issues with mechanical problems or whatnot, or just doing oil changes and air filters and such, you're going to keep that car on the road. You're going to actually keep that car in its best health. It's better to drive them than to let them sit, but we know that this brand, there's a lot of them that do sit, but it is okay to maintain it even in that circumstance too. So as long as the vehicle is checked over and maintained properly, that vehicle can stay on the road, and you can drive it as if it was a modern car. To be honest with you, you could drive it, enjoy it for the season. You can drive it year round and not have an issue with these cars as long as they're maintained correctly. It's important to use genuine Porsche parts. Mainly, there's a couple different things, but mainly the quality. When it comes down to Porsche classic parts, even though it's a classic part and it has a vintage look and feel to it, and it goes onto a vintage vehicle, it's actually gone through different revisions. So therefore, it'll actually be kind of the best that it could possibly be in the engineering spectrum of it. So there might be, we call it revision, is that say there was a gasket or something like that, and it actually went down the road and it became a failure point. Porsche would actually look into that failure point if it became a big prominent issue, and they would actually try to make it better. So there could be revision 1, 2, 3, sometimes 10, but that's all in the spectrum of making that Porsche quality original part better. Versus sometimes the knockoffs, they'll actually just knock off the first revision, and therefore it might be the same problem that we had on our first go. They use that as their tried and true test. So it's totally worthwhile using a Porsche quality part, and therefore you're going to have the best of the best of all of that. Another good thing about a Porsche part, original equipment part, is that you're going to get 2 years manufacturer warranty with that. And so if you bought that off the shelf, you'll have warranty with that. But the main thing is if you have it serviced here and you say you got a rear main seal done, you'll have 2 years warranty, and that would include labor. So if you actually had to take it out and drive around and it broke down at a different location, you could take it to that dealership that's close by and not have an issue, and go from there. The Porsche Classic Competition is for the Porsche brand, and what it is for a classic portion of our cars. It's actually to show Porsche's main focus is to show the classic brand in itself. This is our second year doing it, and what it is, it's our decision to actually do a full or partial classic. We could decide between a transaxle vehicle, different generations of 911s, 914s, or 356s. In this case, we picked a 89 911 Carrera, but what happens is that we actually document this full process through the media with Porsche and then within ourselves to actually show the full teardown of the vehicle, and we actually have to use, in that vehicle, we have to use certain amount of componentry that is OEM and brand new to build that vehicle back up, and we actually have to show that we can actually refurbish and make what was old new again within our skills set here. So we're usually using our skill set to actually bring this vehicle back up. So in this Porsche Classic Restoration Challenge per se, we're actually working against other dealerships that are throughout Canada. So every dealership that wants to be a part of it, we're actually going to be in competition with them in this circumstance. So last year we actually a couple of years ago, we took our 993 C4S that we did a full ground up on that one there, and it got shipped to Montreal, and it was judged between all the dealerships throughout Canada. And then this year we're actually doing an 89 911 Carrera and doing the same sort of circumstance. But it's very cool. We actually use genuine Porsche parts. We build the car up through our Porsche standards, and we have a lot of fun along the way. I guess what we learned on this competition versus last is project management. It's actually just knowing how to actually deal with the time frame on making the vehicle work for a dedicated timeline. And the car had, a set date and end date, and we had to make sure that we were had to, make it on time. But it was just to make sure that certain components, we're working on European cars, working on German vehicle and brand, and we had to make sure that certain components were flowing in at the right time. Things were getting installed while other things were getting taken off. Just that whole transition of making sure that this vehicle, timeline-wise, would fit into that spectrum. So it was, roughly about a year, but it actually squishes down into a smaller bit of time when you think of how much time it was at the body shop or how much time we're waiting on parts or this or that. So just working on the car, it's definitely an interesting one. I think what we learned at the very end was 30 hours working straight on a vehicle to make sure that it's done for the show. We definitely don't want to do that one again. Another big one too is to mitigate ordering way too many parts right away. It's actually the best thing to do is just to take your time, go component by component, and actually build a parts list as you go. And therefore you're going to find out that you've ordered the right things. You've ordered not too much and too little. That was the big thing for us. The car that we're currently working on for this classic competition is a 1989 911 Carrera 3.2 liter. It's special because last year I have a G-body with a G50 transmission. So it's a special 2-year car at the end of the G-body chassis for a 911. But yeah, it's a cool one. I find the most interesting part about this car's history is the owner's attachment to the vehicle, to be honest with you. It's a cool car. It's an 89 Carrera. Like I mentioned, it has a lot of cool features, especially being the last year of a G-body and it having the 2-year only G50 in a G-body. But realistically, it's the owner's attachment to the vehicle, his passion for the vehicle and involvement with it that makes this one really special. He truly loves this car. You could buy a new 911 if you wanted to, but he's decided to make this one or restore this one and make it more to his suiting and taste than most clients would in a restoration type competition. What we've improved on with this 911 versus and this competition car versus a lot of vehicles, whether it's maintenance or service, is we're reviving kind of the whole car as a total. So there's a lot of aspects that aren't just hit on its own, but we're actually doing things so it's a kind of a well-rounded vehicle. Anything from suspension, engine, transmission, body, interior, all those aspects have been touched, but it's been done so that they're kind of in an organic way. One thing works with another. The big thing for us is chassis. A lot of people forget when they go through an engine and transmission on a vehicle, they forget that there's this giant metal box that it has to attach itself to, and with that there's a lot of suspension and bushings and components that get tired and brittle over the time. And you can get a beautiful engine, you could have a nice shifting transmission, but if that chassis doesn't feel right, you're going to feel all the bumps and bruises, bruises on the road, and car's going to wander and feel a little bit lost, and you kind of are going to have that old car feel. With this, we're actually revived the chassis with new bushings all the way through. And we've actually gone through the engine and transmission, as we mentioned, but it's just kind of a unison of everything put together that makes this car a total driver. So therefore, you're not going to have any issues or hang-ups on any part or one component. Everything's going to work together. So it's going to be almost, let's call it zeroing the vehicle. So making the vehicle feel like it's going to be new again, so that you can now live kilometer-based lifestyle that the car kind of deserves. So you get to start from ground zero and just keep driving it and just do your oil change, your air filter, your spark plugs, fluids, and just kind of continue on, rather than feeling like, oh, I can't believe the transmission went, or the engine, or some suspension component. In this case, everything has kind of been touched and given new life to, whether it's refurbished or brand new. What surprised me most about this car was that this car's been in the the Porsche community. It's been around. A lot of people know of this car, and it looks good, and its quality and all that kind of thing when you're staring at it. But what it is that with anything, there's a lot of hidden damages, hidden corrosion, hidden bugs that people just don't know of. And what surprised us is catching this car at the right time so that it would have a lot longer life ahead of it. Meaning we found a lot of hidden rust and damage. As well, we found some fuel line issues that were actually going to be, let's call it, kind of detrimental, as for it could have caused a fire or issue. There was an installation error in its past history with some of the fuel lines as well too, which could have caused rupturing or whatnot. So it was just one of those things that you see a car at a car show and you think it's like the greatest thing ever, but sometimes in this case, it would look pretty, but it had a lot of hidden issues that now we're luckily taken apart to figure out and stop, especially things like rust. When you have a small bit, it can grow into a large bit very quickly. So this is a big one for us, which was a very happy find, and with the client's sake too, super ecstatic on the fact that we kind of saved his vehicle for many generations to come. The biggest challenge we faced so far, this car here is a very unique one because it's somewhat of an exclusive to the client, an exclusive classic we call it. So it's a vehicle that is a narrow body 911 3.2 car. With the Carrera, anyone realizes what the body and chassis looks like, but with the client's kind of request, he wanted to make a M491 package, so a turbo look package. And to make a turbo look out of a narrow body car, and also to follow kind of the procedures that Porsche put out from factory, we wanted it was a difficult challenge to actually make a wide body, 930 look car. And we had to make wider fenders, front, replacement fenders, all the componentry. So finding all that stuff was a good challenge for myself, because some of the stuff's not available anymore. A lot of it is, but some of it isn't. And it was a challenge to find different componentry from around kind of the world and across Canada to kind of fill in the blanks to make that turbo wide body look again. And as well, knowing what we want to do with suspension to give it a different look, give it that wide body look. It was an exotic challenge, but we handled it quite well. Biggest personal achievement with the car is I guess working with the client hand in hand, making sure that I kind of relay to him what's going on with it, working with him to kind of fit his criteria and demands, and also to stay true to the Porsche brand and not go too crazy. Sometimes people, when they're going in such a big, crazy build, when it comes to a financial standpoint of how much demand there was in the vehicle, say, because we had to basically tear this down into just a straight up chassis, it's sometimes easy to go too far with the vehicle, but we wanted to make sure that it was still kind of to our client's taste, still had an exotic presence, but still had that simplicity of Porsche. And so that was kind of the hardest part, and the biggest challenge was to bring it down and step it down a notch to make sure that this car actually stayed true, it stayed simple, but yet was a subtle beast, let's call it. So I think this car is going to be a really nice one. But yeah, that was our biggest challenge, was to work with the client to make sure that we can make sure that he's happy, but stay on that standpoint. I guess the biggest detail that's most exciting for me is going to be the engine, most likely. There's a lot of heart into that engine. The client's very much involved and wants to be involved with it, loves the fact what we're doing with it. But it was just it all started with that. It all started with some oil leaks, some fuel line issues, and just kind of some minimal things that snowballed into this giant project. But I think the engine's going to be the best part of the whole scenario, just because we're using OEM equipment and technology, but we're kind of plus one-ing it on those things. So we're actually giving it some new life, a new breath of air. We're 964 camshafts from a 3.2 to a 3.4, using Molle pistons and cylinders. Going with a little bit of exotic componentry, but still keeping it factory. So I'm pretty excited about how this engine's going to go, and just on its own standpoint, just the visuals, the restoration and the color codes and the picking of the right components to put it together. I think that's going to be the best part of it. I guess the biggest takeaway, the biggest learning experience is that I guess time management, once again, is just making sure that when you think you have a little time, know that you don't have any time. It really sops up a lot of time to take a classic and build it the way that you want it, build it under customer demands, and then as well build it within our weather spectrum when it comes to Calgary and Alberta. It's hard to make a seasonal vehicle and try to plan it and have it done for those types, but it's actually just making sure that everything kind of comes together and it's all cohesive and it makes a beautiful product. But that's going to be the big thing, I'd say, is just making sure that I guess knowing that time slips away faster than you can think. So it's better to use them and enjoy them, and then when you're building them, it's better to get it done as quickly as you can, but as well under strict guidelines that Porsche and ourselves gives to this project. So I think the biggest piece of advice I'd say when for anyone that's kind of dealing with a restoration project of their own is that utilize the information and the people that are out there that are knowledgeable and that can fill a void that you may have in your project. It may be the dealership here. We're able to do quite a bit. Our knowledge base and what we do day to day when it comes to the classics program, it's quite good on that aspect of things. But it's just knowing that there's kind of not a lot of good information sometimes, chock full with a lot of great information, and it's just taking that information and just kind of processing it to make it work for yourself, and just knowing not to trust the first thing you see, but maybe do a little research yourself and know what you're getting yourself into, so that way you don't get yourself into a bind real quick with either assembling something of your own or having someone help you do the work for yourself. But I'd say just having good solid advice, knowing that even for us, we're here to help you in any which way, whether it is something that you're on your own with at home, or if you needed further help and you wanted to bring it into the dealer, knowing that good advice is sometimes hard to find, but just looking at the right place is kind of the most important part, and knowing that Porsche Center Calgary is here to help with your classic needs.
My name is Loc Ngo. I'm the owner of Cosmos Collision, and I'm an auto body technician by training. So I'm a licensed and rescue technician in 1985. So right now will be 34 years. Long time. Yeah. So I started Cosmos Collision in 2008. To be exact, February 25th. Cosmos, I worked for many body shops before, and I realized that they don't have any body shop that can cater to a luxury car. Because for a customer, I can identify the customer who ride luxury car, they have a special need and their requirement is different. So when I start Cosmos Collision, I put myself on the customer's shoe from their perspective, and we serve them right, and we do good quality work, and above all, it's honesty and integrity. One of the hardest things for me to obtain in my life is to get certified for Porsche and Audi, because the requirement is very stringent. And most important, before I get certified, then I have to earn the trust and the confidence from the dealer that sponsor me. And the training and the equipment is there are a lot to do and to obtain for that, so it's really hard. It's not easy. Altogether, for Audi, it take me about 4 years. But after I have a certified by Audi, then everything is easy, because Porsche, they use Audi at the standard. So when you certify Audi, then it's easy. Because most of the equipment is the same, and just some additional training. Working on the Porsche is always different, special, because I love Porsche. So different. You work on the car and you like the car, you love the brand and your passion. And when you work on the Porsche, it's a lot of emotion. Yes, because for me, every time I work on the Porsche, I always think, okay, when the work is done, I will have another customer for life, and most of the time, I have another friend. So it's different, because there are lots of emotion when you work on the Porsche. An Audi, a Volkswagen, or other brand. Yes, I still do my best. But when you work on a vehicle that you really love, you really passionate about, that's different. One day in 2015, I walked into the Porsche dealer, and one of the salesperson pointed to the white G model, and he said, "Look, you should buy this one." I asked him why, and he said, "It's one owner in excellent condition." So I looked at it, and then I said, "Oh yes, I buy it." Then moving forward, when I pick up the vehicle, and then Scott Chapman, he told me the vehicle, the first in-service date, April the 8th, 1989. And when I picked up the car, it's April the 8th, 2015. And Scott pointed out, "Yes, look, that's your birthday." I said, "Oh, right." So it's just like fate. So that car is tied up with me. I took the vehicle back to the shop, and that night, when everyone went home, just me, myself, I walked down to the shop, I looked at it, and everything just sinking in. I looked at the car, and then I said, "Wow, is it true?" So I pinched myself, and I screamed. Then, yes, it's real. I walked over, I tapped on the car, then, yes, it's mine. Moving forward, everything I do, I want it to be perfect. So we replace a lot of things. Yeah, I put a lot of new stuff on my car, but after a while, the shop gets just busy and busier, so I don't have time to do anything on the car. So we just put them aside. And then one day I talked to Ken about some other thing on the car we need to look at. And then just one thing after another. So now here we are. But then I have an opportunity to work on the first Porsche Classic Competition of last year. So I know the quality of the work and the standard that have to come with the Porsche Classic. And I know I can and it work. So I decided it would be an honor to have my vehicle enter into the competition, and the dealer accept my nomination. So we go on that. But now looking back, this one is my passion, my love. So I know that when the vehicle is done, when the work is done, and everything will be perfect, the way it should be or better. So I have no. Some people ask me about the time and other things involved on the restoration, but I have no regrets on that one. I've been working on a lot of Porsche restoration and collision repair. So I thought I did a good job. But when I start working on the classic program, it's an eye-opener for me, because the bar is this high, and then it will help me to elevate my expertise and my standard. So it will benefit for me personally to enrich myself, and it's good for my business too, because we raise the bar. Yeah. You have a customer who want to restore their car. So you have a car here. That's the customer, they come, they want to restore. So we do a lot of work the whole night here, so that it will be nice and shiny. Yeah. Everyone look at it and say, wow. But then when we have a classic one, then that means every nut and bolt, every tiny detail have to be perfect. Yeah. So there are a lot of challenges, because you cannot overlook even the tiny little detail. Yeah. Let's say Kenneth, he helped me and guide me with the work, and he will reject even so tiny detail like 1 or 2 millimeters off of the spec. So the standard is very high and have to be exact. I found that to work on the classic car, it's a bit harder than even on the brand new Porsche. The modern car, that is very easy to work on, as long as you have the equipment, you have the training, because they build them in a set standard. So you follow the instruction, and you have the tool, you have the training, you have equipment, then you have it done. But for a classic car, so it also they have a lot of many things that can happen. When we said the classic car, so you look at something that maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. So the build standard different, and then over the life of the vehicle, many things will happen. So it's a lot harder, because you have to be like a detective. You look at it and then you say, what happened in that component before? How come the panel look like this? And you have to try to figure out what happened to it before. Okay? And then we try to create and try to bring them back to the original spec. And then you have to do a lot more research and trial and error. So it's a lot harder than a modern car. The surprise for me that when I stripped my car down to bare metal, then I found that in the past they have an accident on the left rear quarter panel. They have a small dent, and that's it. Yeah, I'm very lucky because the vehicle in perfect condition, save for one or two rust spots at the usual place. That is to welding in the 930 turbo flare to make them to become a wide body. The dealer supply us with the original flare. Most people, they will have a fiberglass on aftermarket. I have the original one, and it took us 1 week to weld one flare. So left and right flare, and I delete the sunroof just for welding. It takes 3 weeks. Yes, so that's the biggest challenge, and I want it done to perfection. So no bonder, no body filler. I have never do anything like that before, but we did it. Yeah, I have the big help from Derek and Kenneth at the dealer, because Porsche Classic, they have a lot of parts. They remake them now. If you want to do it right, go with the OEM part, because you can get the right part. But if I'm worried about the cost, then I get the aftermarket part. Then I'm sure I'm not happy, because I've seen many fiberglass quarter panel or fender. The build quality is not that great. I work on two 930 turbo right now. The quarter panel, the fender, and the bumper, just a nightmare. So I stay away from that one. I work on fiberglass on a couple of vehicles. Yeah, on the Corvette, and actually on the two turbo that I'm working right now, some of the part is fiberglass. Yes. If you ask me, I will say if I have a choice, I go with OEM part, because the fiberglass part is not that great. So that's it. Yeah. We try to be, and not say if, but we hope we do our best. And if we win, then that will be a personal satisfaction for me as the owner of the vehicle, and most of them for the team, because for our certified collision repair center and the dealer part and service, because we work together as a team. So it's not just me, but the whole team here. So that's a big honor. Yeah. I always think when we restore a vintage or classic car, that's it's not just the vehicle, but that's our way of reserve our heritage. So my car, when it's done, my guess is I ride them a little bit every year, but most of the time it will stay at the dealer. Okay? Because so customer who come in, they can see the vehicle, and then the dealer can showcase them what can be done to restore a classic Porsche the right way. Okay? And my plan is we can even go further than that, because let's say if we have a customer, we know that they're serious, they want to do the classic restoration, and what could be better if they can take the car out for a spin, so they know what can be done. Because part of it one is my passion, and part of it to help promote the business for the dealer classic department and my business. So cannot be too selfish in that. Yeah. If I have to do it again, it will be identical. Because I don't think we can do much or any better than that. Because let's say, to be honest, Kenneth, he a really good technician, and just like me, he really passionate about his work. So along the build, he will discuss with me of some other option that will make the car perform better. So I know my specialty on the body side, but on mechanical, I'm very fortunate to work with someone just really passionate. So everything going to my car right now. It's the best it could be. We can make the car go faster and more power, but I want something more like streetable. So tone them down a little bit. So that's it.